So every driver I can think of this year is loaded with carbon. Carbon, 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 carbon. Everyone is shoving carbon down our throat. Every manufacturer except Srixon. This is their new ZX Mark II driver lineup. They have gone away from carbon and into a full titanium crown. I'm really interested to see how this performs, and if you are too, let's go. To the mat, Batman, to the mat. When I was looking at the marketing material for the new Srixon driver lineup, I was anticipating that Srixon would have an entry-level head, they would have a high forgiveness head, maybe draw bias, and then a low spin player's driver. And that's not necessarily the case with this new Srixon ZX Mark II lineup. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through each driver head and tell you about the tech behind them. The first one I'm gonna start off with is the ZX5 Mark II. So this is their entry-level driver. This is their high spin, high forgiveness, high launch. I'm gonna hit it with a stock shaft. For me being a extra stiff shaft, the stock option is a hazardous black. If you're new here, we're hitting off of a TrackMan. We're using a Pro V1 RCT ball. We're in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, 3,400 feet elevation. Let's go. Okay, first swing. Let's see what we think of this bad boy. Tinny. That is very tinny. The absolute first thing that I noticed was the sound. I said it was tinny. That was pretty loud. It had a very high pitch impact and it just sounds different from what I'm used to. So let's just keep hitting it. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Brandon. I do golf club reviews just like this one, and I'm getting ready for my 2023 driver bracket. I want to find out what's the best driver of 2023. So throughout this video, I'm going to find out which one of these Srixon drivers goes into my driver bracket. So I'm excited to find out which one is moving on. Okay, what do I notice out of the gate? From all of the hits that I've had so far, my spin is very high. For me, I personally like a low spin driver, but if you're someone who maybe has trouble getting the ball airborne and you could use some more spin, this ZX5 Mark II could be a good option for you if you're shopping for Srixon. Now for that driver bracket that I'm gonna be filming, I'm kind of having a tough time on deciding how I want to determine the best driver. Like what's most important to you? Is it just distance? Is it dispersion? Is it forgiveness? Is it price? Last year what we did is we took the total distance and we subtracted the yards offline to find a far yet accurate driver, but I'm not sure if that's how I want to do it this year. It would really help me out if you guys can point me in the right direction, because at the end of the day, these videos are for you guys. So how does this thing feel so far? Out of the gate, it actually feels pretty decent. I notice on the face that there's no milling. Visually, I think it looks pretty good. It's very subtle, but feel-wise, it feels similar to other drivers this year, but again, the sound is what's just different from the majority of the drivers of 2023. Even though this driver is good for maybe some high handicappers, there is a PGA Tour player using it, and that PGA Tour player is Lowry. The Irishman who won the Open a couple years ago is playing this driver, so it's cool to know that Srixon is catering to obviously some of the best golfers in the world, but the same driver could be used by someone like you. If you're new to my videos, I am typically carrying it just past 300, but I've had some drivers recently roll out to like 340. So far out of the gate, I'm not really impressed with the yardage for what I'm used to. The dispersion's actually been pretty good. So that last hit was pretty cool because I felt like I tugged that left, but it held the line. So from a forgiveness standpoint, like if that's my miss, it's hard to argue with that. All right, that's 10 hits. Let's take a look at my data. So if it looks like I haven't slept in 3 days, that's because I haven't. My beautiful wife, Jess, and I just welcomed our first child to the world. We had a baby girl, and I forget what sleep is. So don't hold it against me if I got big bags under my eyes. I'm trying my best to get through this because this parenting thing is harder than I thought it was. Okay, so all of the numbers down here are the average of my 10 hits. So you can see I had very consistent dispersion. I had that big high cut, which is kind of my normal shot shape. That one that I missed that probably went the furthest was that low draw. Average club speed 116 is lower than normal. Ball speed is up there. 170 is probably just on the lower end of my average. Spin was too high, and I mentioned that earlier. Carry 297 is lower and total is lower than the majority of the clubs that I hit. Let's look at the dispersion. Dispersion was decent. Like I had 4 that are almost touching each other. I had 1 right on the line. So from a dispersion perspective, I thought it was pretty decent. That shaft is a shaft that I'm fit into. I could maybe play around with the settings to get it closer to normal, but based on the spin, this definitely isn't the driver for me. This next head that we're looking at is the ZX5 MKII LS. LS meaning low spin. This is the same driver that Hideki Matsuyama is using, and it is their lowest spinning head. Typically the lowest spinning heads of any driver lineup are the hardest to hit. Srixon is saying that this is still mid to high forgiveness. So let's find out. So talking about forgiveness, that was super low on the face and it held my line. So I so far like that about the LS. So this head does feel a little bit different. It sounds the same, but it feels a little firmer, and that's because the weight has been moved forward. The ZX5 had the weight at the back to increase launch and increase forgiveness. They've now moved the weight forward, so the weight is right behind the face, which should help increase ball speed. So far it does feel faster off the face, it just feels a little firmer, and that's because of that weight. The next driver I'm gonna hit is that ZX7, and that's Brooks Koepka's driver. So it'd be cool to go from Hideki's driver to Brooks's driver, and I'm interested in the differences between those two. So I told you guys Srixon moved back away from carbon into titanium again. The reason why most companies are using carbon is so they can strategically place weight around the driver. It's a lighter material and it helps increase ball speed and forgiveness. Srixon was so confident in their titanium placement around the driver, they got it within 1 gram of their previous carbon model. So from a weight perspective, there is no difference, but from a performance perspective, well, we'll have to look at the numbers. Okay, that's 10 hits. Let's compare the data. Okay, so brief overview on my data. I think that my club head speed and ball speed went up from the previous driver, which they both did. Spin came down, so it is a lower spinning head, but for their lowest spinning head option, for me to be averaging 2,900 RPM, to me, I don't really consider that to be a low spin model. Carry went up, as did my total distance, but I notice looking at my shot tracer, I got a 2-way miss. So from a forgiveness perspective, if the ZX5, if this is the majority of my shapes, being 9 out of 10 on my normal cut line, but I move into the low spin model, I have just about half going left as I do right. Let's look at my dispersion. So the distance is relatively consistent, right? A lot of these drivers are on the same line, but I got 4 right, I got 4 left, and 2 held the line. So if I compare this to the last one, my dispersion is a little bit wider than it was with the ZX5, but the distance was more consistent. So interesting. I've had a lot of drivers that have a very similar session. I still had the majority of them close to the line, so I would say it was a relatively good session, but just looking at my carry and my total, it's still like 20 yards behind some of the other drivers I've tested. Okay, this last head is Brooks Koepka's driver. Well, it's not entirely Brooks's driver. Brooks has kind of a souped up tour only version of this driver. So the one that I have to work with is still the Mark II, but one of the biggest differences is now there's 2 weights. So there's a bit more adjustability that I could put either the heavy weight on the heel or I could put the heavyweight on the toe, depending if I want to draw or fade bias. The characteristics of this head are supposed to be the lowest launching, but the spin is supposed to be higher spinning than their LS model. That's why I just kind of thought this was weird. The ZX7 is a more compact head, but it is still 460 cc's. It's fully titanium. I'm just kind of like, I don't know why they need this head. If they have a low spin head, they have a forgiving head, this is a compact head, but with higher spin. It's kind of all over the place. It's not as black and white as some other manufacturers make it. That was like super low on the heel, and I'm getting pretty good at that on my first swing. let's talk a little bit of tech. Srixon has what's called the rebound frame. The rebound frame works with what they call the dual flex zone. Think of the face like a spring. So as the ball makes contact with the face, it springs back behind the face, and there's the dual spring zone, which essentially you have two springs pushing the ball forward. Do we think that's legit? Okay, that was my best drive of the day. It took me almost 30 drives to get there. Like, I'm just gonna be straight up honest with you guys. We're almost to the end, then I'm gonna pick which driver's going into my 2023 driver bracket. Last one, make it a good one, you bitch. Nope. Okay, that wraps up all of our hits. Let's compare these drivers. Okay, let's kind of dissect that session with the ZX7. Club head speed and ball speed were right around the same as everywhere. Between the ZX5 LS, the ball speed actually went up 2 miles an hour. Carry, 303 versus 303. Total 326 versus 327. This is why I was confused why they have 2 player low spin heads. Like, I don't notice a huge difference in the characteristics just looking at those numbers. But when I look at the dispersion, we will see a difference. So this was that ZX5 LS, and the dispersion with the ZX7, the majority of them went to the right. So I think for me, based on the dispersion, the ZX5 LS, I kept everything in play, and I like that. If I can hit a draw and I can hit a fade and I can get some near the line, that appeals to me. I think because the ZX7 is more of a fade bias, that's why I was leaving a lot out to the right, and I don't like having that miss. Because the numbers are all very similar, I think for my driver bracket, I'm really just gonna dial in that ZX5 Mark II LS. I think that will be the driver that I can line up. My overall impressions on the Srixon is that I wasn't really impressed. I've definitely hit other drivers of the same price point. Oh, how much are these? This is $6.99 Canadian. So I know a lot of you guys are like diehard Srixon fans. You're probably gonna eat me up because I don't love these drivers, but I have always liked Srixon irons. A later video we'll do is a full review of the new Srixon irons. And if any of you guys are looking for a discounted driver, check this out because this is how I did last year's driver bracket. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on how I should go about doing the 2023 driver bracket because I want to make it better because these videos are for you guys. Thanks again for watching. We'll check in with you next time.